Hey
Hi,
there.
everybody. It's time for another conversation with your coaches. Hi, Donna.
How are you today?
Really good. Really
Good.
good. I've been enjoying the morning with you getting ready for this.
hmm
And we're going to continue our little mini series about the four key qualities that Gallup said are critically important for managers. What are they? Hope. Oh, it's from the Strengths Leadership book by Tom Rath.
Yeah.
Trust, compassion, stability, and today we're going to talk about hope,
Yeah.
right?
What an incredible topic to talk about today, especially after coming off of. Oh,
I don't know about you, but in my world, like my family and the clients I'm working with, I noticed that hope has started to really decline in the last couple of weeks. Have you noticed that too?
yeah. hmm
Yeah. So today we're going to teach you one thing that we think really makes a difference in inspiring hope on your teams if you're a manager, although it applies to any leader in any position.
hmm
And then four questions that you can ask when you feel like hope is not happening or to get people more in the vein of hope.
hmm
But I thought we could start by defining what hope is, because we all think we know. But if you really look up the dictionary definition, hope is a feeling of expectation and a desire for a certain thing to happen.
Right. Right. Yeah. So to me, it implies anticipation, desire, a faith to move forward. Right.
I think it ends up cultivating focus, right? Because now we know what we're headed toward. We find a path forward and we start to see what the future could look like.
hmm And I also think it builds optimism and confidence in the future.
And don't you think it just aligns perfectly with what a coach is? Because part of why we're doing this little series is, well, why does it matter? Coaching at work, coaching as a manager. But you know, the word coach comes from the Hungarian word for a vessel that takes you from point A to point B, you know, like a stagecoach.
Right, it carries you. It's
Yeah,
a
it takes you
destination.
somewhere. You end up at a destination, exactly. And I love that parallel that hope, in a way, is like a coach, and
hmm
coaches move you towards hope.
hmm hmm Yeah, it carries you, lifts you up to that new place.
And Gallup had so much to say about why hope is important because I don't think we think of hope as being a workplace quality,
hmm
but there seems to be an underlying piece here about how if you don't have hope, meaning you don't have a focus and something that you're really creating for your people to look forward to, then you'll end up being very reactionary.
Right, right. hmm
And you were a manager for a long, long time. How did you strike that balance between reactionary and more intentional?
Yeah. Well, I think it's tough because we all know we are faced with constant challenges day in and day out, right? Not only are we doing our day job, we have our responsibilities to getting things done and, reaching our everyday goals, but we also have, we're responsible for a team of people, right? So inspiring motivation or inspiring hope um, is really it's about communicating a vision. What is that message, that expectation, setting setting a vision for what's next, and expectations that people can rally around, right?
Yes.
And be a part of also. And that's really hard when you're a manager, when you're faced with putting out fires and solving problems all the time. So, as a manager, as a leader, it really is taking a step back and, kind of pulling yourself out of that mode, the reactionary mode, into being proactive, into, setting things up for the future. And I think that communication and having a conversation around it leads to the light at the end of the tunnel.
Right.
It leads to you know it, instead of that sense of hopelessness or how are we going to get through this, because that leads to a loss of morale and disengagement. A leader should help you navigate through that chaos. So it's about initiating instead of just responding and reacting.
And I love what you said about communicating the vision, because maybe you have a vision, or we could even call it a mission, right? Something
Right?
you know that you're really about.
Mm-hmm.
But if your people don't know it and you're not all moving toward it together, then that's when they start to feel a little lost, a little worried, a little unsure that what they're putting their energy and effort into is actually contributing to the end goal. And that all leads to that experience of hopelessness.
Right, right. So when we can put on our, coaching hat on, our kind of our take a coaching stance, there's and being able to really communicate a clear, transparent, compassionate message that points to that exciting future. Or, even if you're going through tough, hard times, being realistic about what's next and showing people or helping people understand their contribution to influencing or impacting that future.
Very meaningful for them, isn't it? For all of us, we all want to make a contribution. That's one of the fundamental viewpoints of a coach, right? That we are connected to the reality that human beings innately want to contribute. They want to be part of the solution.
And they want to help each other and support each other. That's what humans do.
We do. And what I hear you saying is that when we can craft that vision and communicate that vision clearly, it brings that alignment, that clarity, and ultimately a sense of ease, right? Like we're all on the same page and we're not wasting time and energy doing all these things. Right. We're focused on this and we know why we're doing it. It's on purpose. And then if you do that long enough, it starts to feel like you're right on time, or you're like grace is happening, right? Like you're in the flow,
yeah,
which is the sweet spot.
And, I think it's just important to kind of recognize that, this is hard stuff for managers too, because, we use the analogy of being at the border all the time, during tough times, we kind of hit that space where, we can get stuck. People are stuck, people are frustrated, people are, fearful. Their natural instincts come out. So at the border, we can either fall back or fall down, or we can learn to recognize some of these natural instincts and, help people break through to the other side of the border with more ease and grace, more and more of the time.
Yes. And the border will happen every time, right? That experience that it takes a lot of energy to get done what we really want to do is absolutely to be expected.
Right.
We can learn to invite it rather than to reject it or get upset by it or blame ourselves or others, right? None of that is pertinent. The border, that experience that it's hard to do this, is exactly what coaches are designed to help people navigate, because we surrender to the fact that it's always going to happen. There's no getting rid of it. So what happens at the border? Let's talk in more specifics about if you have a project you're trying to get done, or you have a proposal you're trying to submit, or you're making a big shift in your culture or the way your company does work. What does that border that we're referencing look like? What are some of the things that happen there?
Well, I think we all have some emotional responses, right? Some people just turn off. Some people get real busy, and there's tons of distractions that get in the way from, the real priorities and actions to get you to the other side of the border, to get you to that end game or the result that you want.
Yep.
So, I think at the border, besides all the emotions that go along with it, everybody goes off in different directions, right? There's no alignment.
And you're making me think of fight, flight, and freeze too, right? So much of our amygdala gets activated when we're doing something new or meaningful.
Mm-hmm.
And so then you've got your category of people who are fighting for what they think is right. And you've got your category that's kind of checked out or numbed out. And then you've got your category that's just like absent, like suddenly they're sick at work all the time.
Exactly.
And so I know in our shorthand, we often say like the people get messy,
Mm-hmm.
right? People do what human beings would naturally do.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
So you fall into those. I said, I keep going back to those natural instincts. You fall back into your comfort level, or you
right.
fall back into doing what you know to do. And in some cases, it is staying busy, right? But you might not be focused on the right things.
Right. You might be cranking out all the reports, but really the report we need is this other report.
Mm-hmm.
So if we are stepping into that reality as a manager, as coach, and we're really putting our coaching hat, we're recognizing, okay, we are up to something big here. Here's the vision we're going for.
Right.
It's not really working yet. What are some of the questions that that manager can be asking the individuals on their team to help cultivate hope?
Yeah. Yeah. I think that, a big first question to generate conversation around is, if it were to be easier, what would be happening, right? And
Yes.
generate some conversation around that, around the actions, around, what that, what it really means to have things be a little easier, a little more focused.
Absolutely. And I think another one is to look directly at what's confusing. What's confusing here?
Mm-hmm.
Especially if you're having a team meeting, like let's all talk about what's confusing. Let's not brush it under the rug or
Right.
try to ignore it. Let's actually lean into it because that might be where the greatest breakthrough comes because we have some new clarity about what's happening for our end user or for our customer or our client, right?
Mm-hmm.
That the confusion we feel mimics the confusion that's in the actual work.
Right. Right. And I think also that, when you're working with teams also, um, people are different. People have different preferences. People have a different understanding. And as a manager or as a teammate, you may be making some assumptions of what they are feeling or seeing or observing. So getting clarity around what is confusing or not right, um, you know, again, that generates that language needed to be in alignment.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So the third question that I would offer takes a little bit of a different tactic, right? Rather than being in it, maybe we ask people, what would you be experiencing if we could achieve this mission? If we could achieve this vision, what would that be like for you?
Yeah, that creates a sense of hope. If you can actually create a picture in your head or articulate what that vision not only looks like, but the way you would feel if you accomplish this or achieve this, that gives you a incredible amount of energy.
It does, doesn't it? It just helps you access instead of being in your head or in your gut worried about it, you're more in your heart
Right.
connecting with the value.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, perhaps another question to follow that up would be, what's getting in the way of you or us experiencing this?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Especially as a manager, right? Because you end up being the hub for so much information. So you might come to understand where a bottleneck is that
Mm-hmm.
somebody down the line doesn't understand because they're not in contact. So I guess basically what we're advocating for here, number one, to cast a vision, it's clear and that really draws everyone into it and be very vocal and explicit about that. And then to follow it up with lots of frequent conversations with people where you're asking these kinds of questions that
Mhm.
elicit hope, that get people in touch with, if they could be contributing more, what would it be? And if there's something in the way of them contributing more, what is it?
Right.
And hope is what springs out of that.
Right. And then the only other thing that I would just add to that is, um, you know, we all need help sometimes and support. And sometimes we forget to ask for that help or are vulnerable enough to reach out to, a friend, a coworker. So, as a leader, as a manager, even asking, you know, what kind of support do you need? Who can support you? How can I help you?
Yes, so valuable. Well, and this sort of brings us to the end, because
Hmm.
one of the ways we can help is to teach you all of these skills and more in our Be a Breakthrough Manager class, because we understand what it's like to hit that border where you're trying to create something new over and over and over again.
Hmm.
And we can teach you some really powerful skills to get over the border with greater ease more and more of the time.
Yeah, yeah. And we really want each and every manager and leader to really tap into their own genuine management genius.
Yes, because each of you will create hope in a different way and with a different vision.
Mhm.
But when you put all those visions together within an organization, that's where you can really change the world. All right. Thanks
Okay.
for hanging out with me, Donna.
Yeah, thanks. I look forward to next week when we talk about compassion in the
Yes.
workplace. Wow.
Compassion in the workplace? Is that even a thing? Yes, it
Hmm.
is.
Okay. Stay
Well,
tuned.
yeah. Talk to you then.
Bye.